Okay,
Here comes Trista. Looks like we just went live on YouTube.
Jocelyn, are you playing an old recording that we're
I
hearing?
know I didn't say that.
I just muted myself.
All right, thank you.
This feels like a little bit of a Twilight Zone episode.
President Tenchbury. Select your video. We'll start her video then. It's like it doesn't recognize the camera. We know that she's there. Apologize to the public that they can't see you. Katie Grieve is here in the room with us. Okay. With that. YouTube's good. Yes, we are streaming. All right, meeting is called to order at 7:08 PM. Jennifer, could you do a roll call, please?
Yes.
Oh. Yeah, sorry. I'll get it here. Pledge of Allegiance. Katie, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now a roll call, please, Jennifer.
Dawn? Here. Kristen? Here. Jenna? Here. Katie? Here. Lauren?
Excused.
James?
Here. Quorum is present. All right, Dawn, could you lead us in the adoption agenda, please?
I move to adopt the agenda and the consent agenda as presented. Second,
Could have been, please.
I move to amend the agenda and add school board member resignation as item F under new business. Second,
And the reason for this is her letter of resignation came in after we published the agenda, so otherwise we'd have had it on there to start with. I received it Tuesday or Wednesday. Anyway, we got a letter from Christie. Unless there's any discussion, a roll call on the amendment, please, Jennifer.
Kristen?
yes.
Jenna?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
Katie? Yes. James?
Yes. Amendment passes. Back to the original motion. You could do a roll call on that as well, as amended.
Jenna?
Yes.
Katie? Yes. Kristen?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
James?
Yes. The agenda set for the evening. Dan, could you lead us in the board greeting and reading, please? There's someone that'd be willing to read our reading to us out loud. We'll take some time. We'll think about that, and then we'll go around and we'll be greeted by the board and just share a reflection on this book. I'll read it. James? We must not, in trying to think about how we can make a big difference, ignore the small daily differences we can make with which over time add up to big differences we often cannot see. We must not, in trying to think about how we make a big difference, ignore the small daily differences we can make, which over time add up to big differences we often cannot see.
I'll launch in.
Good evening, board.
Good
Evening,
evening.
Jenna.
I immediately think this quote resonates to me as a parent in particular. It probably will to many other people in the room, but often it's, the people that see your children every now and then that see their growth or their maturity over time. Sometimes hard to see, but it's true, I'm sure, especially at the small school with so many long tenured teachers in this district. It'd be very gratifying to see how the impacts of the educational model and their instruction and mentorship can make little differences in the lives of the students here.
Someone to follow you?
Oh, I need to.
Thank you, John. I
Good evening, Katie.
I like to think about, like, when you're reestablishing a new habit, it takes at least 30 days of really changing things to make like that big overall adjustment in your life with the habit, right? So I think that it's taking that though, and every day takes a little bit of focus and a little bit of like making that small change to make the overall big change. And we can, overall it makes a big difference. So I like that. Let's go, Christine.
Good evening, board.
Good
Good
evening,
evening,
Christine.
Kristen.
I was thinking about a new calendar that I put on my desk this year at work, and it has a little reading that you can ponder and reflect on it. Then it has like something to do for the day, and so I've been reading those, and then like at least trying to reflect on them, and hopefully trying to at least put it in my mind and try and do what it says to do, because they're all great things. And I think I'm not trying to make a big change in my life, but just if sometimes it's just the small things, like it's daily, maybe doing something that could make a big difference over time or to somebody. Sometimes we don't realize, the little things that we do in our lives can really impact somebody else. It might just be a smile, it might be a kind word, it might be, just little things that add up over time to make a big difference to others that may not be a big deal to you. And so I think that, small things are good. Eventually it all pans out to be great. Dawn.
Good evening, board.
Good evening,
Dawn.
Continuing with the theme, if there's something on my to-do list, a big rock, so to speak, that gets moved from day to day to week to week to week, then that's my signal that I need to break that into small.
Get out your rock hammer.
Get out the rock hammer. So there's something I can check off at the end of the day. And eventually I might finish that big project. But I love all the different perspectives. Sure. James, no. Clean up.
Good evening.
Good evening, James.
I agree with kind of what everyone said about this, and I too agree that we need to think about the little incremental things we do every day. Because they get lost in our own streams of thought sometimes, but they can have a tremendous impact on someone else, and you don't even know it. You may never know it, but it could just be that you smiled, said hello to somebody. You could have made all the difference in their day, and it slips right past you. But you should never forget how important those little tiny things we do can be. Yeah. Oh, I mean, Jennifer, sorry.
Good evening, board.
Good evening, Jennifer.
I think that this, for me, I see it as like getting tunnel vision. You have like one big goal and then you just ignore everything else around you, and like you can't forget that it affects everyone else around, like your attitude or whatever you're doing affects everyone else around you. Yeah.
Good evening, board.
Good evening.
I just think about kind of that slow impact that we have. And I I think about some kids that I worked with when I was principal at the International School of Islamabad, Pakistan. There, so some of the boys were not particularly the best behaved. There was a lot of discipline stuff that I'd work on with some kids, and different fights and things. So the kids are getting detention, discipline. It's just like it's constant. You just want to like just fix it. Like you're doing something. In each of those interactions, always like these long conversations. Too. And with some of these boys, I remember noticing just kind of like a slow diminution in the behaviors, both like in the extremes and in the frequencies of it. And I remember 2 or 3 of them came in one day, and like on Friday, when school's out, they walk in and they go, "I need to talk to you about something." They tell me they were challenged to a fight. And it was like with non-school people off school grounds. So I'm like, well, I don't have any discipline to talk about. And we just talked about it for like 2 hours. Like, well, what are you going to do? What do you think you're going to do? What do you, and that's hard, that kind of adolescent culture, very kind of macho culture, the challenge, how can I walk away from that? Or all these things, what people are going to say. And just kind of finished. And I said, good luck this weekend. That was it. And the next, Monday they came in and I just said, "Hey guys, how'd it go?" And they said, "We decided not to go." And to me, that was just like this kind of, for a lot of them, like this capstone of growth, that not only did they have the time to like, sit and think about it, but then also made a decision that I really respected. And I know it's like, that's only a result of 2 or 3 years of long conversations with them, kind of slowly helping them get to that point and being able to talk to them at different times with their parents about like, these boys, they're in the process of becoming the men they want to be. And like that process, like they slowly were making decisions that I think were really leading them to be the type of people that they wanted to be and that I think they're proud of. So I think of that and I was going, that's that long game. That's that do those little things every day, because that's what it can lead to in students and children, the people. So,
All right, we'll move on to public comment on agenda items. Did we have anybody sign up, Jennifer? That's quite all right.
Yes.
I see that. Only one?
Yeah, it's only one.
All good. You are free to go first.
So I just wanted to come and let the board know in public that express my interest in filling the vacancy that Christy has made by moving to Nenana. I think that I can offer good perspective that can add to the school board and help the school district and the kids and the community as a whole. Definitely getting more interested as I've got more kids coming into school, 2 already, three more to be added in the near future. So I wanted to come and express my interest publicly to you guys. I've already sent an email to Dan and James about that, and also just request feedback from any of you on advice for things to do to prepare and or learn in the process of how that goes. Dan sent me an email to explain the process a little bit of how a new board member will be appointed. Appointed. So, and thank you for you guys' service, and you guys did the hard part going through the election and stuff. And from what I understand, there's at least one more person interested in this, and that's good. Grateful to hear that. Just because election's over, not everybody just went away. There's still some interest. It's good to hear. And that's all I got.
Thank you, Forrest.
And also I will be leaving because I've been helping with basketball
Understood.
Go help with that. So,
Understood. Thank you. Guessing we don't have a student presentation tonight.
Not tonight.
Figure everybody's pretty busy right now.
Their presentations in the gym.
Yes. That was my guess. All right. This is acting strange. I know. I have nothing here. Okay. Business item 5B, staff recognition.
All right, so we have a long-serving staff member and someone who does work pretty closely with the board, who's going to be departing. That's our business manager, Rena Bogodich. She said, no, I don't want like resolutions or anything like that, but we do want to make sure to take time and recognize her. And we do have a gift for Rena on behalf of the district.
I'll pretend I'm surprised.
She did not pick which one she wanted.
Thank you.
Well, you will be deeply missed, Rena.
But we're not gonna be that far, so we're just 8 hours away. It's just right there.
It's far enough.
We're not getting rid of our house, so we'll be visiting.
That's
Okay.
good.
Excellent.
Yeah, there's a card that we all did manage to find.
Well, best of luck to you. And we get an all-new mayor's report, Mr. Knoll.
You're in the
We're
front of the
moving on to 6A, if you'd like to address the board.
Well, thank you, board members. Nice to be here, Superintendent Volta. I'll start with, it's an honor. It's an honor to be here, honor serving our community. Thank you all for your service, continued service, and I'll jump right in. My report is online on the borough website, so I'd point you to that. I did notice it's not available in board docs when I was able to get it. Sounds like there's some trouble there, but I'm just going to go through and highlight just a few things that I touched on in the assembly meeting last week. So on the administrative front, we're very grateful for our finance team as well as your finance team. And we received the fiscal year 2023 audit back, and it was unmodified. And so that means, as the auditor said, it's like a straight A. There were a few recommendations for best practices that we can work on, but overall, we're very pleased. The borough is in a very healthy financial position that we can all be proud of and grateful for. And that unmodified audit opinion is just kind of the icing on the cake. And it follows a very difficult audit last year. So this was a very good turnaround year for the borough. Couple items of interest. We had a Cantwell school tour that Superintendent Volta led before the previous assembly meeting, and our two new assembly members were both there, and I think they got a lot out of that tour. So thank you for leading that. And wanted to mention we're going down. I'm going to go down to Juneau for the first time here later in February. I understand you all, few of you probably are traveling down a couple weeks prior. So I'm looking forward to that. A couple assembly members, Assembly Member Canali and Assembly Member Anderson. I'm sorry, David Alexander is going. One of whom has gone before. And so we're going to go speak with our representative and senators and a few others about our priorities. And those priorities included school topics, including robust support for the major school maintenance grant program. That's a very important one. And the district has been very successful in that over the years, and we'll continue to work with the district on those projects. Sustainable funding for the base student allocation, and recapitalization of the Community Assistance Fund, which is a chunk of the borough's funding pie. So I also wanted to highlight public officials training open to all elected and appointed officials and staff. That's coming up January 27th from 9 to 12 p.m. I'm sorry, that's 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. That's a Saturday. and then January 31st from 6 to 9 p.m. in the evening. One of those sessions will be recorded and posted online for later view. And it will be the same content for both sessions. And Borough Clerk Amber Renshaw would be the best person to ask any questions you may have leading up to that. An honor, yeah, again, it's an honor to be here. And that reading really resonated with me. And I wanted to just share a quick perspective. Something that was going through my mind is if you're on kind of the path of life and today is the center of a circle, and you make just a slight change in your actions, whether it's a smile or just a greeting with somebody or listening to a member of the public, since we're all public servants, and it's just a little correction. It's not much of a change at that moment, but then as you journey down towards, picture the outer edge of that circle, you're significantly further away than where you would have been before. And so I just appreciated the reading. Thank you. Happy to take questions.
Thank you, Mayor.
And I'd
Any
point to our staff.
questions for our new mayor?
What are the dates of your Juneau trip?
Our Juneau trip is the week right before Winterfest. Another exciting event coming up. So it is February. The Alaska Municipal League holds a conference, a winter conference in Juneau. Those dates are February 20th through the 22nd. We will travel the day before and I believe travel back that Thursday, late afternoon.
Very good.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
Congratulations.
Congratulations. All right, we will move right along. Everybody get a chance to read over the, we only had one additional administration report. Any questions regarding that?
I don't have a question. I just wanted to highlight once again that Karen, our Director of Instruction and Learning, her reports are robust to begin with, but if anyone is interested in how we're doing on meeting our strategic plan elements, you know, it's just so rich with information about how she's working with different staff members. And I was really, I really appreciated hearing both the positive and the negative reports on the results of the literacy screening that happened, and including the elements that were required by the regulations, like knowing like this is required, we have to do this, we have to meet with parents of students who are you know, hitting certain targets. That's really useful to me. I also wanted to say, I think she's defending her dissertation. Maybe before. Yeah, it's very exciting.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, that report is available to the public. Just open up more docs if anybody wants to read over. They are, as Don said, very extensive about what's going on behind the scenes, much more so than you would see with us here on the board.
James, I had a question. Sometimes Karen has been in our audience available for questions or has given a presentation of her report. And I would have some follow-up questions for her. What would be the best?
What
way
would
to
you
approach
suggest
that?
through you? Don?
Forward those to me.
To you?
Yeah, and I can either answer them or pass this on to Karen or likely, depending kind of on the question. I can also judge whether that's a Jenna question or is that something that will like kind of collect and then feedback to the board at the next meeting.
I was particularly curious about those results of the reading interventions and whether she was surprised at the results or if it was expected. Maybe Toby, you could speak to some of that perhaps in the report. But again, just so impressive and just really great reporting.
One thing I can say, and I know she mentioned that in our mid-year screenings that we did. Well, I'll start by saying that the mid-year screenings were not required for students who had tested as proficient at the start of the year. We elected to assess all the students because we were sitting there thinking, well, if something's happened between the start of the year and the midpoint that says like maybe we're having a weakness in reading acquisition, we should probably know that now before next fall. We thought that wise, even if the state didn't require it. And some of the students that we saw kind of below that proficient mark and trying to find the right language, because the language the state kind of built into their stuff is like a reading deficiency. And then people, it's like, your child is not deficient. Your child might need some help making sure they're kind of on track for reading. We want to pay attention to that so we can offer those support. Your child's practically perfect in nearly every way. They're not deficient. Okay, so it's one of those things like watch out for our language. Because we wanted to do that. And we think some of the students that we see, maybe we're a little bit below that line or mark. There's obviously some natural fluctuation. Progress is never like uniform in one direction. And so there's always like those fluctuations up and down. Sometimes people hit plateaus and then they might individually have big growth. They might struggle for a bit, there might be a good test day, bad test day, all those things. And then statistically, like someone that's deemed start of the year proficient, the statement kind of mathematically is they have an 80% likelihood of being proficient at the end of the year. So there's a 20% likelihood or a 1/5 likelihood that standard instruction, regular like tier 1 instruction in the class, a student that was just proficient would be not proficient at the end of the year. And so some of those fluctuations that people are experiencing, now we've scheduled meetings for those. Honestly, I think are a result of some of those real natural things and just kind of like the ebbs and flow of what learning is really like. And again, it's probably not like something really happened in terms of disrupting like that child's progress with reading, but it is stuff that really helps us go, hey, let's make sure if there's a little bit of supports we can put in place, hopefully for a short period of time, and make sure the trajectory is on that upward bound. We want to be doing that, because what we don't want to do is say, oh, well, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. And then much later going, no, this is a significant challenge for the child. And now they're no longer able to access material and they're struggling. They don't want to come to school, those types of things. So that's one piece that I know kind of caught us, and kind of we did some deep thinking about that too, both in terms of the plans to do the mid-year assessment, and then we looked at the results and noticed, what happened?
Can I ask a follow-up question about that? Have we had any feedback from parents about how the Alaska Reads Act is going, or like, are they happy? Are they upset? Are they, excited to do it? Or
I think they've been generally happy with it, and I think like the meetings have gone well and things have been supportive. I was in one meeting, asked parent permission for me to. I just wanted to see kind of what it was like, but I'm not in those. So maybe Toby, can you comment on that? You're in those.
For the most part, I mean, I cannot think of a parent I've encountered that after we've met has still not been supportive. Although some parents may be, surprised or something, which means no one really would enjoy hearing your student struggling with something. But once we explain the process, and especially now that people are seeing the benefit of it, I believe that it's overall a net positive as far as the way it's being viewed. My perspective.
thank you.
Any other questions? Right, we'll move on then. Section 8 of our meeting, the reports and correspondence. Any of the committee members that had meetings, anything you'd like to highlight outside of what we're already doing, our business this evening? All right. With that then, Rena, I think we will move on to your final report for us.
I also want to just bring your attention to the board that Jeremy Stanfield, the new business manager who's up for approval of hiring, I've just submitted him into the meeting to kind of just, he turns on his camera, we'll get it. If you don't know what he looks like, you'll be able to see him. But we will be receiving the report this evening from Rena.
Thank you. Good evening, board.
Good evening, Rena.
So, this is my report as of December 31st. And as you can see, there's one variance or two there. So I'll start with the revenues. Our local sources that includes our interest revenue. So pretty much that almost $13,000 is the interest revenue that we received. Part of that also is remember that incident that happened during summertime, the first student wire fraud transfer that happened. We received our insurance claim proceeds. And part of that, I reported the proceeds into our operating account, which is part of that local source revenue, which is, I believe we received $1,000 something from the insurance, but the rest, like the majority part of that insurance claim that we received got reported in the transportation fund. It's pretty much wash, so it's not going to be showing on this report. The next one is state sources. That's our monthly foundation receipt, which is almost $500,000. We are quite aware that our final enrollment number came out this month, I believe, or in December, and we already have the final amount of our numbers of our enrollment. So we adjusted that according to the numbers that we received from the state. So we've seen almost $140,000 that we're going to receive from the state according to that report, the enrollment number. And then we have not received any federal sources, which is the impact aid. No revenues from that for this month or the December month. And then the special revenue funds, we have not received anything because I just processed our second quarter reimbursements, and we are receiving some deposits already this month. So you will see all those reimbursements that we are receiving beginning January the 4th. And then our transportation grant, we received our second, and I believe there will be a final or third and final payment in, I believe that's towards March. So we received almost $114,000. And if you notice on the variance column, there is a difference of almost $4,000 because our transportation grant is based on the number of students on that reconciled document from DEED, which is the final number of our enrollment. So we use that ADM to adjust our transportation revenue. So we've seen an increase of $4,000. And then if you go to the expenditure part, we just did our revisions. We've seen a little, changes in the expenses, but we don't see a lot. So we don't feel that it's something that will be reported on this one yet because it's pretty minimal. But we continue to monitor our expenses. And right now, if Mr. Polt already mentioned that we already purchased that Kubota under our operations and maintenance, and we already adjusted our operations and maintenance expense to include equipment, which is Siemens and purchase of a vehicle. So there's some adjustments there, but we don't see that it has to be shown in this report, but we're keeping our eyes out for them. And then I'm going to jump to, I would say not the second page, not the third page, because we don't have any variances on our expenses, nothing to report there. I'm going to jump to the fourth page, which is the grant page. As you notice, Mr. Polta asked me to include dates on when those grants started and when it's going to end. So most of them, it ends on June 30th, and a couple ends on September 30th. Of 2024. And if you see one of them, it's already closed, which is the safety and well-being grant, because that's just a very short one-time grant. So since second quarter is, I finalized the journal entries and submitting all the reimbursements. You will see most of these grants have changed from last report. And one of them actually is almost spent. If you look at Title 6B, we only have $10,000 left. And as of check processing today, that one is already closed. So the third quarter reimbursement, it will show zero on that one. But Title I and Title II, those are our ESSA grants. Since Title I is based mostly on salaries and benefits, you will see quarterly changes in those. It's not something that we can close right away. Title II, you're probably wondering why it's still zero. It's because most of our staff travel and conferences, it will happen this month in February. So we're sending staff to RTI, to ASTI, to AP Reading. Some of our conferences like that is covered by Title II. And then school improvement, we have a second quarter expenses in those. That one is, some of them is supplies and materials, and some of them too, it covers salaries and benefits. So you will see quarterly changes in those. I've already mentioned about Title 6B, it will be closed beginning third quarter. Section 619, we use that for our preschool payments for our preschool students who has special services needed. Carl Perkins, we still continue to purchase our welding and building trades materials using that grant. And typically we use them all, and we are very, very grateful for that grant. SRSA, that will be used up before the deadline of September 30th. Jenny and I have been working on finding out those like trainings. Last time we used it for our SPED aides to do Linda LaBelle, and I think we're still going to use that for those trainings. Title VII Indian Ed, that one will be used also to pay for one of our but an aid in Cantwell to cover the wages and benefits. So we've already changed our program details or statement for that grant, and the federal government already approved it, where we can use that grant. Because before we used it for Andy Lee when he visits in Cantwell and Anderson, but we're using it differently this time. It's the aide at Cantwell who will be using that grant. It will cover her wages and benefits. And then ACAL literacy. We continually use that grant to cover salaries and benefits for our director of instructions and learning instructions. Some of that too, it's covering Rachel Nicole's salaries and benefits. So in Anna Zwitzer's services. And hopefully we'll get to use some of them and then cover a quarter of first quarter of the following year, which is already mentioned in FY25 budget. Next one is early learning. That one, it's a big grant, but we slowly spending it. And hopefully now that we have Miss Stone, and she's really she has started ordering materials for our preschool program. So you will see some more expenses on that grant, hopefully pretty soon, because that one, it expires 6/30/2024 and it doesn't carry over. And safety and well-being is closed. Homeless, that one will be used up too because Jenny is planning to attend the conference for homeless, and that grant is specifically just for that conference. So and then our pupil transportation, that's the expenditure as of December 31st. I know that our revenue for the transportation will not cover the entire cost that we're paying to our bus service, but I believe it's up to $100,000 that grant will not really cover the cost. And then that's all for all the grants. I'm gonna go to page 5, which is the bank and fund balances. So our operating account has $1 million. Our business interest sweep has $3 million. And I mentioned earlier that we earned $9,600 on our interest. And then our transportation fund currently has almost $570,000. Our capital projects fund, I believe that is, we already closed our Tri-Valley roof replacement. Curtis already finalized that report. And I'm hoping there will not be any more bills coming because that is, I believe, submitted to deed already. So whatever number that was reported on that document, that's all our expenses. And right now we have $261,000 left. And then our student allotment reserved, that one will not really go down really quick because our students are using the current year first before their carryover. But as you can see, the current year student allotments, that one monthly, we report any expenses under that item. So it will continue to decrease monthly. So as of December 31st, we have $4,020,113.36 for both bank and fund balances. So that concludes my report. Do you have any questions? I know it's longer this time because it's my last.
Yeah. Go out with us.
I'm gonna ask you a question this time.
We'll see if we're the same
You
one.
too. Oh, how exciting. It might be the same question. You're gonna get questions, Rena. On the grants page, there are three headers. They're broken up into state grants, federal grants, and competitive grants. Among those competitive grants, how much of that is state money? Which ones are coming from the state? The literacy presumably is all that early learning also state?
Those are all state. The AK literacy, it's a federal grant to the state and we are a sub-grantee from the state. They're all through the state.
And for the early learning
Is from the state.
Yes.
So my question to go along with that is, are we looking to competitively submit an application for the AK literacy? I mean, are we gonna enter in that pool?
So the
That
AK
grant?
literacy grant there's no future application.
Oh, there's no.
The federal government didn't offer the grant again. I'll point out the early learning grant, while that fund is 1 year, we've been approved for the grant for 2 more years. There'll be a different sum of money, will not carry over.
Have we looked to see if there's any other grants out there that could take the place of that AK literacy grant at all?
We haven't seen anything on that literacy side. We did submit the application for a grant to support some capital improvements and some professional development in our current technical education. We approved the application of last month. That was a $75,000 grant if we're successful. We are also looking at, and we'll be working up an application for a grant to the Department of Defense for Defense Institute, military institution impacted schools to be able to focus Anderson and Tri-Valley due to parents that work on CLEAR. To us, that could be a really great additional source of funding, not specific tied in supporting the literacy. In fact, when we designed the budget, the big question we had was, can we return those positions back to the budget? Happy to have a budget that can do that because we don't have that external support.
And maybe I'm supposed to ask, am I approved to sign these? Can I sign checks now?
I believe so.
That doesn't sound very obvious.
We'll try it.
Not yet. I will double check with FMBA first.
Yeah. That was my only question.
That's a valid question.
Any other questions or comments from?
And I would point out, if you haven't looked at your screen, Jeremy is in a Zoom. Just kind of being there to be known and be seen. Yeah, quick question or words of welcome, hopefully. Now's your chance.
It seems premature. Dan?
This is a conditional welcome. On approving you very soon. Welcome.
Welcome. Well, thanks for your interest.
And thank you again, Rena.
Thank you. Thank you for interesting finances of the school district to me. But yeah, Jeremy is, you're gonna love Jeremy. It's really great.
Good.
Thank you, board.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Jeremy wanted to say anything before we send him back to the waiting room? Just kick him out completely. We
can't
cannot
hear
hear you. Thank you.
We'll be in touch, Jeremy. Thanks for jumping on. All right, I'm guessing Mr. Gurley is busy.
Yeah, Mr. Gurley had to step out to help out with the tournament. If he comes back, we might be able to pick up his report later.
Yeah, it's senior night in between the girls and the boys basketball game.
I understand. Everybody get a chance to read over his report. Questions that maybe Dan can answer. Okay. With that, Dan, we'll move on to your report.
Starting off with some appreciations and congratulations, really extended appreciation to Ahtna Incorporated. Our students down, high school students down in Cantwell started their Ahtna language and culture course that Ahtna Inc. is providing. I was able to be there and kind of witness part of it on January 10th. Just kind of quite exciting to have that opportunity for those kids. It was interesting that one of the students that was there that day was like, they're talking about like how to introduce themselves and how it's very much based on like where you're from, what's your village, you know, and family and stuff. And it's like this child just moved to Cantwell, just moved to Alaska. Like this was not like her like deep culture, but really in there just participating well, and some of the excitement like in some of the staff of just kind of knowing that it's there. Really just like a real nice feel and felt great opportunity to be able to support them. Express thanks to the Denali Borough Assembly. They recently passed a couple of ordinances to support some of the maintenance projects here at the school, both providing funding for the generator upgrade here at Tri-Valley, and then also for a large portion of the Siemens HVAC control panels and the software for that. So very happy to have those projects underway. I also want to acknowledge and appreciate our basketball teams. This week, I got a letter from the superintendent of the Bristol Bay Borough School District. Just wanted to like say thanks for your team. They were really nice. They were really well behaved. We really appreciated having them. And for, again, like somebody, you know, one of my colleagues to reach out from their busy times and give a message like that, I just really appreciate that. And I feel, well, we really made an impression on superintendent. That's good. In finances, one thing that I'd highlight is kind of share a number with our FY24, our current year, from Rena's report, is that again, at this point, we're seeing a variance, an increase in revenue of about $140,000. So kind of keep that in mind. So we talk about the FY25 budget. Why don't you just kind of remember that figure, that the $140,000 more in terms of where we will end our position this year than we thought. On facilities, to give you just highlight some updates from my written report on our heat situation in Cantwell. Our heat exchange arrived today. We brought it down to Cantwell. We kind of began the work on installation. I don't know how far it progressed. I would venture to say it's not working yet, but it's now at least on site. And it's been, I think, a lot of delays in getting the shipping here even after the unit was constructed. To the point Curtis and I were getting pretty frustrated with like, where is it? Why hasn't it shipped? And then like, why isn't it here yet? So very excited to have it here. Now we've got to do the work of getting it installed, getting it running, getting heat back in that building. Like thinking can't happen soon enough because we know the temperatures are dropping this weekend and next week. Here at Tri-Valley with our kind of ongoing issue with our girls' bathroom here in the library, I did plug yet again. In talking with Curtis, I learned that when we ran the camera down, we only went down about 10 or 12 feet. The line that the camera is on is a flimsier line, so it's harder to kind of shimmy it down the pipe. But at that point, Curtis said that there was a large scale on the side visible. So the theory is that that is causing, it has been like kind of hanging up toilet paper and causing that blockage. So they're running a snake with a cutter blade, to try to knock that loose and hopefully just knock it loose, run it out and open up the pipe. Again, our continued kind of hope is that the pipe itself is not broken, it's not damaged, and it's functional, and will keep lasting. The age of the pipe kind of is what it is. The only way to do anything about it is to replace it. We will be kind of working up a bathroom renovation project and raising that in our priority on our next CIP application, specifically looking at, I think, asking a question about either this pipe or redirection of the piping to say maybe we don't run a pipe underneath so much flooring, but run it out to a different septic system out a different direction. Okay. We're talking a little bit about vehicle recalls, just with updates in the meetings. We're in the process of kind of rotating our vehicles through appointments with Seekins and having that recall issue with the brakes addressed. Again, none of the, even with rate inspections, we never saw that our brakes were going to be an issue. Never experienced anything with it. But I think we've got one in the shop right now, another one to go, and then they'll be all up to date with the recall. Kind of hinted with the Siemens HVAC control panels, with passage of the ordinance from the borough. We have placed that order with Siemens and they're working that up, getting the software built for us. They'll do the actual install of the panels and upgrade the software the day after school gets out. And throughout the whole summer, they're going to be working at Tri-Valley, basically confirming that each kind of piece of that HVAC system, like all the controls and door panels and switches and everything, that everything functions and communicates back. So it is a long process. They'll start again late May, early June. They'll be working like well into July. So it's quite a lengthier process than I kind of thought it was going to be. Put 6 panels in, download some software, good to go. No, they're going to make sure that it runs and everything operates. If other pieces are broken, we'll have to pay for the replacement of that piece, but they'll make sure that everything's communicated. Interesting thing with maintenance, we mentioned in last meeting that the auger into our coal boiler here at Tri-Valley broke. And we were working on like, okay, we got to get this welded back together. We were thinking, you know what, half an auger, is going to work better than no auger. And we'll at least be able to get it back on coal, probably. And they tried it and they said, oh, it's actually working better. So at this point, I guess we got rid of the excess piece of auger that we might not have needed. And we are operating a coal here at Tri-Valley. There's another grant that we are looking at, climate reduction grant that the borough helped make us aware of. Looks like the only project that we might be able to put underneath that grant application would be expanded solar here at Tri-Valley and then adding solar into Anderson and Cantwell. The other aspects, like either looking at boiler upgrades or changes or like door and window upgrades, like the data that's needed to be able to talk about your actual impact on specific greenhouse gas emissions is not quite data that we have as easy to get to. Try to figure out like replacing a door leads to this much CO2 or methane reduction is a harder calculation. So we're not sure that we're going to be able to put something in other than the solar. It also needs to be a pretty significant dollar amount. So I think we need to communicate back to the borough, because it sounds like the way to go might be borough as the overarching entity, because I believe the level of application needs to be at least $2 million. So we might need to find more things in the borough to be able to say like, yeah, here's $2 million total project, which then would also include aspects of this. Our plow vehicle in Anderson should be on site next week. It did arrive in Fairbanks. There was something that needed to be repaired on it. That's been done this week. And it's supposed to be ready tomorrow afternoon. Our preschool director, Katie Stone, has begun. She started work on January 2nd. This week she did a site visit to Anderson and Campwell. Next week she's going to go over and visit the DPLC. Real fortunate to have her here. I mean, it's We needed somebody to help us with the grant, and really what we needed was somebody like Katie Stone, who has that deep background in preschool, is very familiar with the program requirements because they model them off of Head Start, which is the world she worked in for several years. And someone that is, you know, really excited to, in a sense, build up a preschool because she wants to be back in the classroom working with young kids. And so really happy to have her here. I ran into a board member of DPLC, Monica, who'd had a meeting, a quick Zoom thing with Katie. And it was Monica just in passing was like, you know, its comment was basically, I love Katie, she's perfect. You know, and I think just that right person, right. So really happy to have her in as part of the team. Some legislative updates. It's 8 o'clock and the House and Senate are actually now in joint session to consider veto override to undo the reduction in the one-time funding for this year. It's very interesting kind of watching gavel to gavel a little bit while I was in another Zoom meeting to see people keep walking in and out of House chambers. At about 4 o'clock, Speaker Tilton announced that they'd be inviting the Senate in for the joint session. In that joint session, it would require a vote of 45 of the 60 total members to override a budget-related veto. That's a very high bar. Even being in a joint session, I don't know that I can count 85 legislators that might vote to override the veto. If it does, we'd still have to remember, well, that's good. But again, that's one-time funding we're talking. That does not impact the ongoing funding level, the ongoing underinvestment in terms of like any real future budget. So we still have a very big legislative advocacy work to try to secure permanent, significant, meaningful increase to the base student allocation, which brings up Saturday. Because on Saturday at 10 o'clock, the House Rules Committee will be taking public testimony on SB 140. SB 140 is a bill that started in the legislature last year, really just focused on supporting broadband access, internet access in schools. And then kind of at the end of last session, it had a couple funding pieces added to it, right, when it was sitting in House Finance. And then it was in House Rules when the session ended. So the House Rules Committee on Wednesday added a lot of things to it and amended it. Right now, there has a $300 increase to the base student allocation. Some increases to funding for correspondence schools, some increased funding for transportation. Also has language on charter schools so that the state school board, the State Board of Education could approve a charter school, basically kind of circumventing the authority of a local school board to approve or disapprove the charter of a charter school. It also has a bill that Governor Dunleavy proposed for some direct payments to teachers, not providing any school districts to pay teachers, but to pay districts or pay teachers directly. And again, that's only classroom teachers, not anybody that's not a classroom teacher, but in a teacher classification, such as a counselor, ignores administrators, ignores all of our support staff as well. And it's also not permanent at all. So interesting bill. There are a lot of pieces to it. I would say, again, from our perspective, when we look financially, a $300 increase to the base student allocation is less than the one-time funding we received this year already and less than what your FY25 budget is built on. So even with that passage, like if that's the only part of this pass, we'd still be sitting at really a deficit, pretty significant deficit budget, and then a non-existing situation. So interesting bit of legislation, two real interesting aspects of politics to go on and watch and try to figure out. But again, if you don't want to be at this meeting, you can watch a joint session right now that's going on. And again, the House Rules Committee will be accepting public testimony starting at 10 a.m. on Saturday. One other quick thing under personnel, I do want to acknowledge and let you know that we did start our very long process to sponsor the permanent residency for the 2 teachers that we've employed through the H-1B visa program. We've signed the engagement letters with attorney's office back east, and they'll be doing all the paperwork for us. That and entertain any questions.
The preschool teacher, you said she did site visits at Anderson and Cantwell. Does that mean that Anderson, Cantwell are going to get like preschool programs or 1 day a week type?
We don't know yet. I mean, our hopes are that Anderson and Cantwell would have formal 5-day preschool programs under and really as standard formal preschool. So what we want to do is use this grant opportunity to do our best to stand up the infrastructure to do that, the physical location, the curriculum materials, playground equipment, those things. And if something happens in terms of like those conversations with the department don't pan out for that, what we still want to do is have our resources, both those kind of more physical resources, but also that instructional resource of Katie as that director and lead teacher to be able to possibly advise a volunteer or a TA that we might hire, that even if it's not part of formal preschool, that we are still able to support preschool activities in there. So it's like, we know what our goal and hope is, and we're kind of going, okay, and if that doesn't happen, what can we do to offer whatever it is that we can offer, even if that's space and advice for a non-school entity to do that on our facility.
And also in the past, we had talked about the amount of children that were qualified for like the preschool, and you'd asked about if Anderson and Cantwell can be combined. Has anybody gotten back to you about?
The closest they've gotten to a clear answer is the department's intent is to help support you have preschool in your small community. And we want to work with you to do that.
Okay.
They didn't say, yes, you can count 1 4-year-old with 4 other elementary students or anything like that. They just said, we want to help you have preschool.
Okay.
So, okay. So we're going to keep working forward with it.
Perfect.
That's, you know, till we hear no.
Excellent.
It's not a question. I just wanted to add to something you said earlier, and that's very nice to hear about the Bristol Bay Superintendent sharing accolades. And I guess it's in the reverse from the perspective at least one player. I think they felt well treated, and were given quite nice accommodations. The boys had like their own room, their like bedrooms or suite style housing off of the school. They weren't on the gym floor. They weren't classroom floor. They had actual beds. Thanks, Dan.
Any other questions coming up for Dan? All right, we will move on to old business then. Which one of these needed?
We're all good.
It's been up there. Okay. Well, if that's the case, then Krista, could you lead us in business item 9A?
I move to adopt the second and final reading of the list of board policies as presented and advance them. And as presented, policies discussed and recommended for a board discussion of the board. Policies with recommended changes. Board policy 5131.95/5138. Board policy 5133, board policy 5141.31, board policy 5141.4, board policy 5141.42. And then policies discussed with small changes or formatting edits that do not change the intent of the policy are board policy 5132, board policy 5136, board policy 5137, board policy 5141, board policy 5141.21, board policy 5141.22, board policy 5141.23, board policy 5141.3, board policy 5141.41, board policy 5141.51, board policy 5142, board policy 5142.3 and board policy 5144.
Second.
Discussion on this.
In case we've forgotten, the very first one, it's we're removing 15131.95 and adding I believe the one from the Anchorage School District, that was 5138. So
Yeah, updating our language significantly and then also changing the number so that it corresponds to the same number that many other school districts use for that policy to be cross-referencing easy.
Any other questions or discussion? Then a roll call vote, please, Jennifer.
Dawn,
yes.
Jenna,
Yes.
Kristen,
Yes.
Katie. Yes. James.
Yes. Motion passes unanimously. Jenna, could you lead us in 9B?
I move to approve the second reading of the fiscal year 25 budget as presented and forward it for a third reading in our February meeting.
Second.
Discussion on this.
Yeah, I'd like to just kind of go through some of the changes and I won't walk through the full slideshow. It is there if you want to go through that, if you'd like to see anything in greater detail. But just to kind of do a summary, because there wasn't a lot of changes from the first draft that we looked at in December. Overall, again, this is a status quo budget. It's a continuation budget, meaning it continues our programs that we have this year. It is not adding to, it's not subtracting from those programs. It's maintaining what we currently do. I'd also say, remember that it also assumes that we do receive an increase to our funding of equivalent to at least a $340 increase to the base student allocation. This is again built on the assumption that we will receive at least the same level of funding from the state as we did this year. That is not part of current state law. So if that does not come to pass, that's $500,000 of revenue that we would not receive. $400,000 from the state and corresponding 23% match from the borough, another $100,000. In terms of our budget, the changes that we see in that, and really three kind of big changes and then one small change. We did a change in the expenses on the peak student allotment. We increased the K2 allotment up to $2,300, up from $2,000, and that puts it equal to our allotment for grades 3 through 8. And that's kind of looking to do two things. One, it's trying to make those early grades a little bit more competitive with the other correspondence programs. Again, thinking maybe someone will select us in those early grades and then stay with us. You know, be a little bit more painful to change if they start with us in kindergarten. The other thing that it's doing is we're trying to signal to one of our private school partners that we work with, and they tend to encourage some of their families that they want to enroll in one of the public correspondence schools that we dual enroll. They want to say, hey, just do Denali Peak. We like working with them. We think you'll like working with them. And we're having some conversations with them about the allotment amount. We're not in a position to like an increase in allotment, which they're asking for. Especially we don't know if it's really truly going to correspond to a significant shift in enrollment. Where if it does, then maybe we could come back and have a conversation, but we kind of wanted to signal to them in a kind of formal way. We are looking at this, we're considering this and trying to just make it a little bit easier for them to strengthen that partnership. So has that, and then again, just kind of that remembrance that we are having these conversations with that private school. And so we could see a shift in our enrollment at peak. Hopefully it would be an upward shift. Another change that we did, one of the kind of unconfirmed pieces was making sure all of our technology plan was updated for next year. So we updated the technology plan, and when we did that, we were able to remove a purchase of unneeded student computers in peak. We've had that conversation with some of the financial adjustments that we did this year. It also updated internet costs, reduced those, But then because of the reduced internet costs, also kind of confirmed that, yes, we are not going to apply for the E-rate program through the federal government, save ourselves an incredible amount of paperwork and the fees that I have to pay a consultant to help us with the application because it's so complex. Unfortunately, I'd say for the budget, Rena had already been aware of the peak student computer issue. So when it went back to go, okay, here's the updated tech plan, there really wasn't any money that showed up in the budget when we said when we pulled out the expense because she already knew it wasn't going to be there. And then the exact opposite happened with the maintenance plan. We went through that and we said, okay, let's make sure that we do have the purchase of a new vehicle in there so we can make sure that we are doing our vehicle rotation for our expeditions. So some of those are getting older with more mileage on it. We've deferred those purchases for a long time. So yes, make sure that's in. And we went, oh, Rena pulled that out because she had said, oh, the those vehicles are one-time purchases, and the plow vehicles, the one-time purchase, there's the plow vehicle and the Siemens control panels, those are one-time. I said, yeah, but an expedition needs to be in there. So that was actually a pretty big increase back into expenses. There was and we reviewed those with the finance committee. After that, we did a small adjustment again to the student allotment, kind of realized that we based the allotment calculations on this year's current enrollment of 720 students where the budget's built on 700. So we did that adjustment, pulled down expenses a little bit. So overall, the difference from draft 1 to draft 2 increases expenses about $125,000 and leaves, again, end of year as presented in the budget, got a few points to be aware of. You have an operating deficit next year of $650,000 that you'd be covering from unrestricted carryover and finish the year at about $580,000 unrestricted carryover. But if you remember the figure I gave you for FY24 of $140,000, we're receiving that much more revenue this year than anticipated. So we anticipate finishing the year with $140,000 more than we had thought, which means we'll start next year with that much more, which means, again, just keep carrying that figure down. And so you'd see at the end of FY25, we'd actually be projecting to finish with a little bit over $700,000. That, again, is in that kind of that comfort zone of where we want that unrestricted carryover. It also means with $700,000 projected of kind of those unspent unrestricted reserves, that if there is no change in funding, you would have $500,000 to be able to cover that shortfall. We'd be doing other changes too, but you could sit there, you could see that and go, okay, if nothing changes in the state legislature, we do have the funds to continue to operate as planned. And we would immediately be doing some plans and reduce our expenses where we can logically. So I continue to say this is a budget that, while it has risks to the finances, is a very manageable risk. And if everything kind of comes to pass as we've assumed, is going to bring that end of year figure down into that range that we need to be, because we need to be below that 10% figure. And so your target that we want to be at is really between $700,000 and $800,000. That's the level that we want to be at.
Okay. Questions for Dan?
I'll just speak to that. I mean, this is something that we did talk in the finance committee about. And I feel like we were all in agreement about that increasing of the peak allotment, mostly so that we can kind of keep our numbers to where we want them to be and that we don't see a big decrease by people going elsewhere possibly. And so we felt like that helped us be competitive in that market. And so that was something that we felt justified with. And the other ones are just because, but yeah, that's where we like to sit with that unrestricted carryover is 7 to 8, 750. It's always our goal. So we can continue to maintain the services that we have established here on the school district.
And again, I'd say very fortunate to be in this situation. districts that I speak to, their superintendents, they started this year with 0 carryover. And very recently, it was revealed that the Juneau School District actually has a full $9.5 million actual deficit. Not operational, being paid for from reserves, but actual deficit. They will need to get forward funding from the state based on enrollment in the future to pay that deficit.
Yes, we are very, very fortunate. The school district right now, and we hope that it continues that way, and it will continue that way by the legislature hearing the voice of the people of the state of Alaska to fund education.
To have a truly balanced budget operationally, there would need to be a funding increase equivalent to BSA increase, probably $800 to $900. And that might also be $800 to $900 with corresponding increase from the borough, which again starts to expand that. We'd start to question its capacity to continue just increasing. It's just something to be kind of aware long term. We're okay. We can get through this year, see how the dust settles. Need it really to settle in a way that's going to invest in public education long term.
Any questions for the vote? Jennifer, a roll call vote, please.
Katie,
Yes.
Dawn,
Yes.
Kristen,
Yes.
Jenna,
Yes.
James.
Yes, motion passes unanimously. And Mr. Gurley, we kind of glazed over your section, but if you would like to address us now, we can certainly circle back to you.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity and I apologize, having to run out.
No,
It
we
is
totally understand.
Senior night and
Priorities
extravaganza.
are where they are.
I didn't think about coming here with my announcer voice. And no, don't be like a homer, but I decided to save my voice for the rest of the week. First of all, greetings, everybody, and welcome, Katie. Welcome to the board. Just got a pretty brief one for you guys. I know that my monthly report is in board docs, I believe. Okay, good. And so that gives some information, but I also want to highlight a few things. Did some alterations to the Pi Night format based on some feedback that I got from specifically the surveys that were sent out for accreditation. So, and also some feedback in person at the last meeting. So now I've taken that comment on non-agenda items on the agenda, and that's actually on the front end of the agenda rather than on the back end. Oftentimes we would find that we would end up talking about the items on the agenda and even go over oftentimes, and it'd be 7:20 and let's go home. And so now we've now put that at the top after our greetings and norms, and that went well this last Pi Night. Additionally, I'm also sending out a brief summary of the meetings afterwards via Skyward. That's also based on some feedback in surveys and in person. I'm actually using the AI function in Zoom to help me with that. It's definitely not perfect, but it does give me enough to refresh my memory, so I don't have to write a report immediately after. I can come back to it the next day and it's kind of hit the high points. And so that's worked well, and I hope to make that a part of just the regular process of what I'm doing. And all of you parents should have received one this afternoon, I believe. It seems like we're always pretty busy, but we're about to be really busy heading into the spring, getting ready for Aurora Music Fest. We're already heavy into preparations for that. That's going to be April 11th and 11th through the 13th. Guest conductors are very excited to come. We're going to have 16 schools and anywhere between 400 and 450 people here for that. And this is the first time this has been at Tri-Valley since 2012. And Ms. Mudge asked me to thank all of you for your support of the music program and your enthusiasm for music. So also I did submit that we submitted the CTE grant last Friday to the state. We're supposed to hear from by the end of the month whether or not we were selected or if they want us to make any changes or whatever. The grant did give special consideration. It's based on a point basis, so each page was worth so many points. And then there was also bonus points for districts that are considered rural. And also for applications that could tie the grant proposal to local industry needs around CTE. And so I feel like I was able to do that in the grant. With feedback from Superintendent Polta and also working with Rena. Feel like it's a strong candidate. If awarded, that's going to be $75,000. That's going to go into improving the physical space for the shop areas for both Tri-Valley and Anderson School. And there's kind of an itemized list on there that was submitted with the grant. I kind of had something new happen at the beginning of the week. And I wanted to share this with you. I actually got a letter from a superintendent at a Bristol Bay Borough District. And it was also sent to Superintendent Polta. And it's regarding reflections of the tip-off tournament. Before we get back to the daily routine, we want to take a moment and share our sincere thanks and appreciation for the student athletes, coaches, and chaperones you sent to our tournament. We all understand that when teams travel, they're a reflection of the school, the community, and parents. We want you to know that the basketball teams from Tri-Valley did you proud. Not only do they represent you well on the court, but off the court as well. What a wonderful group of young adults you have. We look forward to more opportunities to host your students. Until then, our sincere thanks. So it impressed me. I was calling coaches in my office. Look at this. Look at this. So it definitely left an impression, and it's always good to hear. You know, we wonder sometimes, you know, what can we tweak? You know, what do we need to change? But there's one thing that's for sure. We've got some great kids, and they represent us well when they travel abroad. So I'm going to open up to any questions you guys may have.
Since we scroll, or just come.
I apologize, I haven't read the Pie Night summary, AI summary. Now I'm gonna look at it. But how do you have consistent participation through this year with?
Yeah, that was actually one thing that I addressed in the summary. I have 3 people in this last one, and they were all online. I was in person. But then and honestly, guys, I thought, I'm like, okay, what did I do? You know, but then I also remember, okay, last January was also very, you know, scantily attended. It's like, okay, it's the time of year. We know there's lots of people who are sick, and also messages that I would get from people. I know you emailed me, but I had other people email me, hey, I wanted to make it, but this came up and this came up and this came up. And so that made me feel a little better. Because my initial thought was, now that I've said I'm going to send out a report, people think they don't have to come to find out what's going on. Well, this is counterintuitive. I'm just going to say, never mind. But honestly, though, it was good because we went in a little bit early too, because we got to like 7 or 6:30. It's like, any other questions about anything? It's like, nope, we're good. But everybody there, I feel like felt heard, because we really did dig into that, you know, the non-agenda questions and really kind of open that up. And upon reflection, that's really what my intention was for something like Pie Night, was for it to be an exchange. And I realized that through just wanting to push out information and frankly tell our story, because there's a lot of great things happening, I didn't allow space for that two-way communication. So I'm hopeful that by having the comments at the beginning of the meeting, that helps that. Yeah.
And your responsiveness to the group comments. And I'm gonna miss February's too, so I apologize.
February's moved. February's moved. Because I'm taking the science of reading class. All the administrators have to take that. And and they will not move. They are this is the most important thing in your life. And so when I looked at that, I was like, oh, that is the 3rd Tuesday. We are changing that. So Pie Night in February will be on the 13th. So it won't be a Valentine's Day Pie Night like it was last time. I don't know if my wife should ever let me forget that, but you scheduled one. Sorry.
We'll be coming back from juvenile.
Yeah, in the air.
You guys can get the AI assisted summary.
Yeah.
So I did make it in my own words. Any other questions or comments?
No. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, guys. I'm gonna run back to the gym.
Yeah,
Okay.
All right.
do it.
Anyone need a break before we move to new business? I'm for charging forward, so, all right, let's see, business item 10A.
There's a party going.
You really better get down there. All right. Wow. Why don't you do this one? I'll let Katie do the next one. Yes. Are you comfortable leading this one, Katie? The policy? It's a lot to read. It's a mouthful. All right. Go for it.
Okay, I move to adopt the first reading of the list of board policies as presented and advance them to a second reading at the next board meeting. Policies with recommended changes, board policy 5145.2. And policies discussed with small changes or formatting edits that do not change intent of policy, board policy 5144.1, board policy 5145.11, board policy 5145.12, board policy 5145.15, board policy 5145.3, board policy 5145.7, board policy 5146, and board policy 5147.
Thank you.
Second.
Second, Kristen. Any discussion on these?
I have a question about 5145.2, the freedom of speech expression. Did that edit come from ASB?
Yeah, it came from ASB and it was recommended to include like explicit language stating that like student religious expression is under the same kind of category of freedoms and protections as other speech due to a requirement in federal grants for a recipient to basically certify that we don't discriminate on student religious expression. And so it's felt, I think, from ASB, that's easy to do if there's a policy that if push comes to shove, you can point to and say, we don't. Technically, I think the language isn't needed simply based on, again, constitutional law. And, you know, again, as long as speech isn't disruptive to the educational program and process, the student does not lose the right for their freedom of expression. And frankly, far greater rights of expression than employees do. Because we are the jackbooted agents of government.
Right. Okay.
Sorry.
That's quotable.
That's actually quoted from President George Bush.
Any other questions or comments? All right, Jennifer, roll call vote, please.
John,
Yes.
Kristen,
Yes.
Jenna,
Yes.
Katie. Yes. James.
Yes, motion passes unanimously. Can you lead us in 10B?
10 seems to just be a discussion of the school calendar.
Is there an actual motion with 10B on this, or we're just discussing?
There's not.
That's what I was confused about.
I've created a draft of a school calendar for next year for you. It's not up. I didn't kind of design it as one for you to take action on. But something to kind of start looking at. And really it's kind of like if there's any question that I have is right now, I've got a draft that's again, a standard school calendar. And it kind of looks at when Christmas and New Year's is. Does what we can with that, just kind of with Christmas, New Year's both being on a Wednesday, there's not a lot of ability to like get out a long time before Christmas. It kind of locks us in with a lot of the other school districts. And so it's just kind of where the dates fall. I kind of looked and said, you know, usually we like our spring break to line up with the state basketball tournament. I looked, this draft has that, gets us out of school before the Memorial Day weekend, tries to have a start school as late as we can in August. Continues our same basic structure of in-services, when and how to locate those, placing some of those on some of the federal holidays that we don't observe from the state, which are work days for us. But last several years have had as non-student days. We have in-service days for those. So kind of like wonder is, and we're gonna look at this and see if there's either do some considerations of, do we want all those in-service days? Do we want to try to return some of the instructional time that takes, try to balance that with the benefit from professional development, do some internal thinkings about those. But it's kind of like, unless you want something like a very different aspect of the calendar, I don't know if I'd have a different version of something for you. But if you're sitting there going, no, I'd really like to see something that we don't start until like after Labor Day in the fall, or we need 4 weeks off at Christmas, like something significantly different that I try to design a calendar for you to consider. I don't know that you're going to see anything very different. So it's kind of opportunity to go like, yeah, status quo is going to be okay, or now throw us a curveball or something real different to look at. Because otherwise we'd be talking about shifting stuff by a day or two here.
Well, I guess a question that I've had is, is there higher staff attendance on Mondays that are professional development days than when they used to be on Fridays?
You know, I don't know what the staff attendance would be like. We've been having this structure on Mondays for quite a long time. Actually started when we were bringing our consultant on site, and it was more logical for him to be here for a week, full in service on Monday, and then we kind of build and follow up throughout the week. Was one of the reasons why we started doing that. Try to continue some of that structure. Recently, our in-service, we were actually able to do a little pre-work on Friday, kind of prime the pumps a little bit, and then really sink into some of the data analysis with staff on Monday. And then also some of another benefit of looking at some of those Mondays and some of those federal holidays was, for a couple of years, we were experiencing incredibly high absentee rate on our elementary students at Tri-Valley, because it seemed that there were community hockey league tournaments for our youth in different parts of the state. And so we would be in school on President's Day, for example, and more than half the elementary school was missing because they were participating in a hockey tournament. And so it's kind of like, well, we could say, no, school, dang it. Or we go, no one's going to show up. Maybe we shouldn't have school then. We also kind of at that same time noticed and kind of realized that, you know, we like to get out earlier or start later. So being able to have that as a work day helps that. But having it as a non-student day does facilitate that holiday for federal employees who do get that. Kind of puts us in a strange place, like we're working on those holidays, we're not observing those events, kind of half observing it. But that was one of the other kind of benefits that we did see. But again, your original question, if staff participation is different Monday or Friday, I don't know. You know, our staff kind of feel the same pressures as parents do in terms of like, what's the best day for a doctor's appointment, one of those types of things. That balance of, you know, arranging for an additional day for a substitute, in-service day, you know, they're trying to balance all of those things as well, whether that's a problem.
I have a question about March. So the in-service this last year, or maybe it's been for several years like this, the student-led conference days, the week, I guess it's 2 weeks after spring break week, but that prior week is a short week. I remember that feeling a little close, because there was, especially, it seemed like there was a lot of lead up to student-led conferences. I just wonder primarily from a teacher perspective and student perspective, whether that's still workable period, but that's more administrative. It doesn't make sense.
I can take a look at some attention to that, so we're thinking about the location.
Also, after the basketball tournament, a lot of kids end up sick the following week.
Yes.
And then it really bumps up against. I appreciate the early out in May. That's great for especially older students that work in seasonal jobs around the entrance.
Any other feedback? Give me what you need then. All right. Since this is a business item, Dawn, could you lead us in 10?
I move to approve the up to 3 board members and up to 1 student to attend the AASB Legislative Buy-in and Youth Advocacy Institute in Juneau, February 9th through 13th.
Second.
Discussion on this. In our legislative committee meeting, kind of preliminary, just had a discussion about this. I am planning to attend if approved. Pretty sure Jenna is as well as Kristen. So that would cover the board members that are planning to go right there. And then there's been some discussion back and forth. If a student would go along, if so, how that selection process would work.
Yeah, and you select the student based on their interest and then strength of their own personal advocacy message. And so last week kind of emailed out to our principal and the teachers. If there's an interested student, have them write and email me something kind of by the end of school tomorrow for me to review, possibly to speak to them. Really what we want is to find a student that wants to go to Juneau, that has something that they want us to talk to legislators about, something that's a state issue that they want to just say, I'm here to talk with you, not necessarily to speak on our behalf. We'll see if we have interest in who that might be. Very good. Any other questions? All right, a roll call vote, please, Jennifer.
John,
Yes.
Jenna,
Yes.
Kristen,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
James.
Yes, motion passes unanimously. Kristen, could you lead us in 10D, please?
I move to approve resolution 24-01. Denali Borough School District's legislative priorities as presented.
Second.
Discussion on this.
It's very, very similar to your legislative priorities from last year. It's a single resolution, kind of encapsulates a lot of aspects. It is general in that support, increasing base student allocation to compensate for purchasing power over the last 8 years. And then inflation proofs the BSA. It doesn't put a specific dollar. The School Board Association has established like a very specific dollar amount that they're requesting of $1,413 based on inflationary pressures. We've kind of always taken the tack of just saying like, kind of that like fund adequate, fund what it is. We could do calculations, say that this is what we would need to balance our budget. What we think is a responsible budget next year. But rather than getting into like, why is it 1413, 1450, anything like that, we've not identified a number. And we've kind of taken that same approach for a lot of the other issues. Also has issues that aren't things that maybe are being talked about a lot in Juneau, like maintaining school size at 10, opposing any cost shifting to districts or municipalities. Sometimes in legislative sessions, things just start to happen. And bills or ideas that weren't ever conceived or that we thought would ever have any chance of moving or advancing all of a sudden are key points of discussion. By passing this resolution, you kind of give yourself a lot of kind of broad terms of just those statements of positions of the board, the ability for myself, your board members that go to Jane and advocate to say, I speak for the board because this resolution establishes.
And to some degree, by proxy of people that elected us as well. We represent the borough.
I did sit in on, let me offer up, I'm not. Well, we could see whether we want to offer it up as an amendment, but I sat in on an hour-long noontime session with Lon Harrison and Norm Wooten of the ASB on part of that was Tuesday, something like that. And they had some good statistics, which I think were powerful, which are ones of certainly that we can certainly bring to Juneau, but regarding the BSA, so they cited, so 12-year period, 2012 to 2024, there's been a BSA increase of $280, which is a 4.9% increase over 12 years, while inflation has increased 30%, according to the Anchorage CPI. So those were pretty powerful numbers that I thought I'd throw that out there as consideration for kind of augmenting those bullet points. The other thing we could consider, of course, is being very specific about what we want for BSA increase, whether that's something, Dan stated earlier at $800 to $900 would go a long ways for our district in particular. ASB has cited that 1413 figure. The other thing regarding TERS PERS, which is not something I'm super well versed in, but the point they made, especially in regards to teacher recruitment and retention, it's doing the state tremendous disservice. It's unattractive to and hampering the state's ability to attract and retain teachers. So yes, cost shifting might be a tactic of the state, but I think they emphasize the point of that the state really needs to get their act together and improve that system. This might be a couple of tweaks. I realized that because I missed that legislative committee meeting, the ship might have sailed. We can't throw this back at the legislative committee meeting and have it ready turned around before
Do you have a specific amendment you recommend at this point? Wording?
I'm curious to hear what other board members think of those two ideas. I could come up with. But I agree, it's fine as is. It's general.
I'm a little hesitant to put specific PSA numbers in this because they get twisted and manipulated. And people want to say, okay, that's your line in the sand. And really the overarching message is adequately fund this. I do think the inflationary numbers are very powerful. Talked about. Not quite sure how we finagle that in here, but and to some extent, if these are our talking points with legislators, I can go on the offensive sitting there with them, but sometimes if it's in writing, it automatically is going to put up some fences between some people. So
yeah,
I get your points totally, but I do think we'd be okay with this being more general.
Yeah, and I think as far as the BSA, I think my takeaway from the conference and training that we had in November, well, I would want to make sure that we're in line with them, even though maybe our number is different. The association's number, I think we should stick with the association's number, just to show support, if anything. I think that the overarching thing that I took away from that is that let's be united, let's be together on a number that we're not all funding around, like we want 8, we want 9, we want 3,000. Be united in the number.
I agree with Kristen on that one. At the AASB, they had made a comment about how they'd asked for 865 last year and that was granted by the legislature. So it was worth it to ask for a little bit more this year due to the extended inflation. But they were going for that bigger number just in case he vetoes and or only takes half again, which is what he had done with the whole package last time. So hopefully it doesn't do that. I also think that the bonus that system that he's suggested is just ridiculous. Like, especially to the teachers that we have currently, like, as far as making sure that they get paid a good amount of money to come up here, like, it's only for the new teachers, and it's nothing like out there for the teachers that are currently here, like,
Doesn't help.
it doesn't help with any of it. It doesn't help with recruiting either, like, that's a moving bonus, like, to come up here, but. So I do think it's important to have the retaining and recruiting high as a point that we push.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good. Support the way it stands.
The way it stands.
All right then. Good discussion, but roll call vote, please.
Katie,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
Kristen,
Yes.
Jenna,
Yes.
James.
Yes, motion passes unanimously. Where? Kristen. Who did the last motion? So you, Kristen. Don. Kristen, could you lead us in this item 10E, please?
I move to approve the hire of Jeremy Stanfield as business manager for the Denali Borough School District for the 2023-2024 and 2024-25 school year.
Second.
Any comments on this?
Yeah, I'd say we were very happy to get Jeremy's application. You know, kind of just looking through that even on paper was kind of like, you know, this looks like there's an interesting set of skills that he might be able to the district. And then we met with him, kind of talked with him, and again, no experience as a school business official. So don't think he's coming in from another school district. You might have seen him behind the grill at the Denali Dog House down in Canton. He's been running that business for 10 years and managing their books, but then also has a deeper history with some work in kind of the corporate world as well. And so had, you know, really impressed both Rena and I in terms of like just had that platform of that background knowledge that we're like, you know, I think with training and support, this is somebody that can do this work. So we will be engaging with an outside consultant to be able to provide that support. Somebody that provides is the business manager for multiple school districts remotely. Rena will offer a little bit of her time as she can to help with some of that as well. And one of the things that I looked at with Jeremy, both in terms of the conversations with him and then also doing reference checks, there's something that somebody wise said somewhat recently is, you know, you hire the personality, train the position. And, you know, felt that Jeremy was really going to be a really good fit for our district office and for the district as a whole. And again, had the necessary skill level to, like, I'd say, easily enough train into a very challenging position. It will be a lot of work to kind of learn it, but I think he can do that. He's already demonstrated a good capacity for that this week. A little bit to some point already going like, oh yeah, I gotta learn a lot. It's like, yeah, you do. And he's just diving in. It's great.
Good. Any questions? Roll call vote, please, Jennifer.
Jenna,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
Kristen,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
James.
Yes. Motion passes unanimously. Last item of business, Jenna, if you could lead us on 10F.
I move to accept the resignation of school board member Christy Shreve and declare seat E vacant.
Second.
And I'll just give a brief update on this. I talked to Christy a couple times. She has officially moved to Nenana. their kids moved schools and everything. That's where they are now. And she did submit a letter of resignation to me officially earlier this week, via email. I'm gonna pass that on today. She's sorry to leave. She really enjoyed her work that she did on the board. And, but they had to make some other family decisions. Talon's been on the road all the time, going back and forth between Banana. It's just, it seems like it's gonna be a better fit. Yeah. Other questions? We can, I mean, the appointment process.
Yeah.
I've placed into board docs the relative board bylaws that govern this. And if you can, I'll just read it out loud, so we're all kind of aware. We'll have to do some work kind of in this coming month. So our bylaw says that a vacancy on the board shall be filled within 30 days of the vacancy by board appointment. In making an appointment to the board desires to draw from the widest possible number of candidates. The board shall advertise the vacancy in suitable local media. So Jennifer and I will start working on that. Solicit applications or nominations of any qualified citizens interested in serving on the board. So in addition to Forrest, who spoke to us tonight, in addition to Sarah Crowley, who also reached out and expressed interest, if there are people that you can go find out are interested, you can reach out to them as well. We on request, and we reach out as candidates, provide candidates with appropriate information regarding board member responsibilities, an idea of what they might be in for, announce names of candidates and accept public input either in writing or at a public meeting, interview the candidates at a public meeting, select the provisional appointee by majority vote at a public meeting. The person appointed shall hold office until the next regularly scheduled election for district board members and shall be afforded all the powers and duties of a board member on appointment. The seat shall be open for election at the next regularly scheduled election for the remainder of the regular term of the seat. So by doing this process, soliciting interest, interviewing people that are interested, voting and appointing someone to fill the vacant seat, that person would then serve as a school board member until next election. And then that seat will become open for election. And that then with that person who then is elected will serve the remainder of the term. And we're pretty sure that Christy was elected to a 3-year term. So you'd be appointing someone for about a year. And then in November, there'd be an election for what would be a 2-year term.
And this isn't unprecedented. We've done appointments in Cantwell seats before. So the main difference is we've never had more than one candidate express interest.
Yeah.
So we actually will be going through more of a formal interview process for this, making the decision as a board. Any other
And
questions?
I'm sorry, the
Okay.
timeline for this turnaround
Is 30 days.
I counted out and we'll just make it with the next board meeting on the 15th. 30 days out is the 17th. Close, but we'll make it.
I will not be here on the 15th. Yeah, meeting.
Quorum is going to be challenging potentially with us.
It'll be the 15th of February. I think with the travel to Juneau for the board members, that kind of that time immediately before the 15th, the weekend before. For my travel to Juneau the week before that, it would be very challenging to have a board meeting earlier than the 15th.
I agree.
And I think we would have 2 board members traveling. If we tried to do a board meeting prior to that.
So as long as we're pretty comfortable, we have a quorum, but we'll have a quorum next. I haven't heard from Lauren.
We should have 6. Yeah. We shall find.
We should at least have fun.
Yeah, minus Dawn.
Right.
Dawn gives us 5.
So we can lose one more, no more.
Okay, nobody gets sick.
All right. Roll call vote, please, Jennifer.
Don,
Yes.
Katie? Yes. Jenna?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
James?
Yes, motion passes unanimously. Guessing there are no signups, but any public comment on non-agenda items? Going once. Sold.
Just a quick thank you. I appreciate all of you guys and the time you put into meeting and making changes, but since we started talking about making small changes, I will plead to you guys to try somehow to make like a small summary of your meetings and share it school-wide. Like, for example, Sarah can maybe send an email to the whole school community parents and just say, here are some things we talked about and the changes you guys have made are so great. So share them. Like, parents don't have the 2 hours, once a month sometimes to be able to attend and like you see. Obviously, it would be great to have more attendance and people to be more involved. Same with Pine Nights and Mr. Gurley, which he was here, I would like to thank him for the fact that he heard the parents who do attend. I'll be the one pushing this small summary change that he can make to share Pine Nights and what we talk about. And he's making that small change. So I really appreciate it. And I'm very thankful. And I think that will kind of spread more awareness of what's going on in school. So parents get more involved and attend Pine Nights as well more. It's sad to see that, like the parent here. So maybe a small change like that will bring in more involvement. So it'll be great if you guys consider it. And again, thank you so much for your time and for hearing me out.
Thank you for the feedback. Thank you. All right. Would anyone like to start with our final comments? You get to pick the next person after you go.
I'll start. Have the least to say. Thank you, Rena, for your service to the district. We really do appreciate you and really wish you the best. And I'm excited to meet Mr. Stanfield and have him working with the board as well. I'm grateful always to hear good comments about our kids and the impacts that they make as they are away from home and in other communities. So that was nice to hear. And I'll turn it to Jill.
Eyes moved left instead of right. I would echo everything that Kristen said. Thank you, Rena. It's been such a pleasure. You're always such a joyful spirit, even entering our meetings in Zoom, which is usually how I see you these days. So it's nice to see you in person and thank you in person for all of your hard work in the district. And yeah, I'll miss you. I'm glad you're keeping your house in Denali. And it's a delight to have Chris Knoll in the audience. Thank you for sticking it out. Just know that your predecessor didn't always stay for the whole meeting, so you don't feel any obligation to stay through the whole thing, especially the ones that go till 10. But thank you for your presence and thank you for stepping up and being our mayor. And then I just want to give a little shout out that legislative advocacy session that I attended. I was reminded again that both of our area's representatives are very new to us. And although I know that Representative McCabe was here for some of the candidate forums, during the statewide election. I'm not sure about for the local election. I don't know that Senator Shower has spent much time in borough. Anyway, I feel like as residents, we all have work to do to share what's the successes and what we're proud of, but also what our challenges are in the Denali borough. With these two individuals, because this is not their home and it's really not their geography. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. But yeah, look forward to going to Juneau and with as many legislators as we can get appointments with.
along to Katie. Thanks. Everything's been going. Chris, it's nice to see you here. Thanks for attending as a parent. Appreciate that. Rena, I didn't get to know you on this front very well, but I know you from Totem, and it's gonna be such a bummer to like not have you around here. It's been great having you. I look forward to you guys going to Juneau and hopefully like having effect. This would be awesome. And I am really excited about the preschool programs being opened up and that being an actual option for Anderson and Cantwell as well. I hope that we can work through and have that available to the whole group. That's kind of all I got. How about Tom?
Thank you to the legislature for the work that you've done and the work you're going to be doing. Thank you, Mayor Noel, for your continued support and the Assembly's support for the school district. That's really important to get those little things done. I was at Cantwell this week and spoke with one of the former students about the ATMA class. She pretty much lit up to, you know, in speaking about how fun it was for the students to with that language. Thanks, Dan, for your continued commitment to hiring really capable people to this district. It's rewarding. And we're going to be missing that one. I'll miss you when I come in on Thursdays or Friday mornings to sign checks and you're not there anymore. It was a good catch-up time. Good luck, Rena.
Thank you.
Okay.
I would just have to say everything that everybody's already said, but a very warm welcome to Mayor Noel, and looking forward to a good, long working relationship with you. And a huge thank you to Rena. You have led us through many a challenge here, and you've done them all very well. So, yeah, we wouldn't be where we are financially, I don't believe, without a whole bunch of work that you've done over these years. You've got us in a good place, clean audits. Our financial side of the house couldn't be better right now. So thank you greatly for that. And again, I'll just keep it sweet. Short and sweet. Dan.
Working together to nurture, empower, and inspire today's student to positively shape tomorrow's. It's interesting. I kind of come back to the quote we read, and frankly, those things I talked about have been in my mind since actually I selected that quote first to read with the leadership. And it just kind of keep thinking about that. Yeah, that small decisions, slow influences, building up that big change. And you know, I spent a lot of time in my work here, not working directly with kids. I don't have that experience that I did in Islamabad when I was the principal for those boys and girls for 5 years. Got to really watch them. What's interesting here is I work with adults in kind of this weird environment where I'm trying to strengthen our adult teams so that, in a sense, they can strengthen their adult teams that then strengthen the student teams. Like kind of thinking through my work with Toby, with Karen, with Rena, is about how do I help make us be better as a team, developing them as both team members, but also as team leaders, to then see that impact and that strength get carried forth into like their realms. And it's been interesting when I kind of pause and think about, you know, Rena's development, kind of confidence that's grown from like, you know, first kind of, you know, the first year is like, you know, she didn't do the reports to you. She didn't want to talk in front of you. And I also wanted to convince you that I knew enough about business that you could trust me a little bit too. I remember that. Rena was really not interested.
No, she wasn't.
So like that growth, even just on like personnel sides, like seeing her like take a stronger leadership role in the office, guiding the small number of staff that she supervises, taking a kind of increasing key role in the Alaska School Business Officials Association, ASBO, that she's a part of, and also will be missed from. I see that growth. I see the growth and development in Karen from that classroom teacher into an instructional coach, into director of learning and instruction. And at the same time, she's able to also keep connecting back into the classroom. She seems to have like got a very kind of like this envious place that she can also go, okay, I'll just work really hard and free up time to go in and support students in 5th grade, students in 2nd grade, which also is helping those teachers develop those capacities as well. Watching Nathan Pitt, watching Toby Curley, watching Erica Filardi, these people grow and knowing that impact that it has on students and kind of thinking, hoping that they're experiencing these things that I did with kids, whether it's in kindergarten or seniors, and seeing that growth and development. Probably with all of them, recognizing and hoping that the things that really matter the most actually aren't the academics that we focus on. That the big kind of like why of what we do things is always about like who are the adults that children are. Like we know we want them to have like these rigorous academic skills to carry them forth into their lives, and their careers, and families. But we really sit there and go, can we help them become the person that they want to be when they're their own, when they're the parent of their own children? That kind of that long-term thing. So it's really interesting to see that with some of our teachers that have been here long-term review, to kind of see that growth and development and know their impact. Kind of envious of them. I don't know many of the kids that I taught anymore. No, a few of them are still in Anderson. Otherwise, they're scattered all around the world. So I have to look at these adults and kind of live vicariously through them. But again, the growth that I see in our staff that I work very closely with, and then the people they work with, I think that again, our students are just in incredible hands that can really help guide that development to those wonderful adults that they're.
Okay. And there being no further business, the meeting is adjourned.
Yay.
Thank you all.